Catastrophic and completely unacceptable. The words of UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres describing the attacks against Muslim Rohingya in Myanmar. As more people flee to Bangladesh, what will it take to stop this violence? This is Inside Story. Hello, welcome to the programme. I'm Jane Dutton. Global pressure is mounting on Myanmar and its leader Aung San Suu Kyi to end the killing and displacement of Muslim Rohingya. The UN has urged the government to take immediate steps to stop the violence. Secretary-General Antonio Guterres called on Myanmar's military to suspend its operation in the western Rakhine state and allow Rohingya to return to their villages. At least 400,000 people have fled to Bangladesh since the violence escalated late last month. We have a lot to get to with our guest, but first, James Bays sets up our discussion from UN headquarters in New York.
These were the toughest words yet from the Secretary-General on the ongoing violence in Myanmar.
I call on the Myanmar authorities to suspend military action, end the violence, uphold the rule of law, and recognise the right of return of all those who had to leave the country.
The UN knows the situation is deteriorating fast. When Mr. Guterres last spoke to reporters a week ago, there were 125,000 Rohingya refugees. That number has now tripled.
Given the situation has got so much worse in the last week, do you believe this is ethnic cleansing?
Well, I would answer your question with another question. When 1/3 of the Rohingya population had to flee the country, can you find a better word to describe it?
The Secretary-General has already taken the extremely rare step of writing to the Security Council urging them to take action. As he spoke, the Council was meeting, first with an open session on Somalia. It was only after that ended and they went into closed session and when they discussed any other business that the crisis in Myanmar was finally raised. Afterwards, the President of the Security Council read a carefully worded statement. It was nowhere near as strong as the words of the Secretary-General.
The members of the Security Council expressed deep concern about the situation in the Rakhine state, acknowledging the initial attack on Myanmar security forces on 25th August.
Should Myanmar stop all its military operations in the state now? That's what the Secretary-General says. Does the Security Council share that view?
Now, that the statement that I read out is what we have agreed.
There are some who'll see that as a very weak statement.
Some might say.
So why is the Security Council not being tougher? There's always a logjam when there's a lack of unity and when one of the permanent 5 members is opposed to action. In this case, diplomats point to China, a long-standing ally of Myanmar's military. James Bays, Al Jazeera, at the United Nations.
Let's bring in our guests in Bangkok. Phil Robertson, Deputy Asia Director for Human Rights Watch, joining us from Yangon in Myanmar. Abdul Rasheed, founder and chairman at the Rohingya Foundation Community. And in London, Maung Zarni, a human rights activist. Very warm welcome to all 3 of you. Abdul Rasheed, at this rate, are there going to be any Rohingya left in Myanmar?
Yeah, of course. Still many Rohingya already left inside the Rakhine state, but they are in a very severe situations. They are very facing huge problem for the food, as they don't have a food. So many people is on the way to Bangladesh. So, and many people, a few days, maybe many days on the way, so without food and water. So this is huge catastrophe as well, the people facing inside the Myanmar as well.
We are hearing that almost 40% of Rohingya villages are empty. I mean, from a military perspective, that's almost a job done, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. Maybe as the footages we're receiving and information we're receiving is about half of the population already destroyed, and more than 400,000 already left, went to the Bangladesh, and around 100,000 is on the way and inside the jungle and inside the mountain and the water, river, wherever they trying to leave the country as well. So, and they don't feel secure here. So most important thing is need people security and the protection. What they don't find the protection here.
And Phil Robertson, I'm just wondering from your experience and what you see on the ground, how this is playing out, this situation that has been called ethnic cleansing.
We're calling it ethnic cleansing. We agree with the Secretary-General that there is ethnic cleansing taking place there. Also with the High Commissioner for Human Rights, Mr. Zaid, who also called it ethnic cleansing. What is happening is a scorched earth campaign that is designed to essentially stampede the Rohingya out of northern Rakhine state, and then sort of a cleanup operation where either army or local Rakhine Buddhists are setting alight the villages that have been abandoned. It's created a massive humanitarian crisis on the Bangladesh border, and it's created wide swaths of northern Rakhine state that no longer have a Rohingya there. That's the classic definition of ethnic cleansing. We're going to be coming out overnight with new information showing that we've 59 different villages that have been destroyed by arson. A number of those we have sensory data from environmental satellite, others we have satellite imagery, which is still hard to come by because, of course, it is monsoon season, so a lot of times we're fighting with cloud cover to get a clear picture of what's taking place. But the devastation is widespread, and it is obviously designed to stampede these people out of the country and to ultimately keep them out, because I think that there's very little likelihood without a concerted effort by the international community that Burma will ever allow these people to come back to the northern Rakhine state.
And Phil, you are hearing at the same time horrific stories of what's been done to men, women and children.
Well, right now we're investigating at least 5 massacres where people have a village was surrounded and people were slaughtered. In most cases, what we have found is that people were able to get away from their village. Sometimes they were shot at, sometimes they were hit with mortars so that there were shrapnel wounds. But in many cases, it appears that they're trying to stampede people out of these areas. They're trying to get them on the run and drive them out of the country. That seems to be the major intent right here. And, you know, if that requires the military of Burma killing some people, well, obviously they're willing to do that. They need to be held accountable. There needs to be a global arms embargo on Burma, and there needs to be a suspension of all military and military ties that have grown up with the Burmese military in countries like Australia, the US, the UK, and others.
Maung Zarni, if we are seeing an ethnic cleansing unfolding here, what do you think the end game is?
Well, the end game is the eradication of the Rohingya as a group, and that takes us to a serious, discussion about why the UN is pussyfooting around this issue, using the word ethnic cleansing, which is ahistorical and completely non-contextual, given the fact that my country and that my friends who are running the army, have a verifiable, inferable intent to destroy this group as a matter of policy. It's we have in Burma, my relatives are in the army, different branches, and there is more than enough evidence to establish that the intent behind driving these people out is not simply to secure the geographic location, but to destroy them as a community and to destroy their history, erase their identity. That is a classic definition. However you define it, however we define the term genocide, either narrowly, legally, which UN attempts to do, and human rights organizations with lots of lawyers attempt to do, or sociologically, as the original framer of the term genocide, Raphael Lemkin, would want it. And so, you know, if you look at...
Okay, well then tell me what you think is happening and what the military is trying to achieve here. What is it then?
The military is trying to cleanse the entire area and restore it to the original state, which they think has no Muslims historically there. And so I think that, you know, the expelling people, driving them, you know, by the thousands, starting in 1978, with spikes of massive violence, killing thousands, raping hundreds of women, periodically, every 10, 15 years. The army has been doing it for almost 40 years. And if you look at the conditions, physical and biological conditions under which the entire Rohingya population has been kept, the intent is to gradually physically destroy this community, biologically stop them.
Okay, I'm going to bring in Abdul Rasheed here. I mean, what do you think can be done if we are seeing a form of ethnic cleansing here to get all the Rohingya out of the country? What is going to stop the military now? Who is going to stop the military now? I mean, you've heard from the United Nations and they've just expressed deep concern. Is that enough?
What we believe is we want to peace and peace in our country. We want to see the peace. So I think for the Burmese military and for the Myanmar government as well, is the most important thing to realize the voice of the international community and the tune of the word of the Secretary-General of the United Nations is very, very important. So they have to respect, and maybe it's very good to them to listen the voice of the international community.
But why would they listen to the international community when they know that nobody's going to come in and stop them?
I think if they're not stopped right now, maybe a situation going more worse where we are seeing the tune is very different than others previously they used. So I think Burmese military and the Myanmar government has to understand the tune of the Secretary-General. This used word is very, very important. That's why, and for the solution is the most important. First is to stop the current operation, very important, and secondly, and to open all the access of the humanitarian aid. People need to be fed, and then people need medicine as well. And the third thing is to possible return of the people who already left the country and bring them with the peace and the security and with the dignity. That is very, very important. I think these are implementable.
Okay, but to pick up on what you said a little bit earlier on, Phil, I mean, why would the Rohingya return back to Myanmar? They know that they're not wanted. The situation is not likely to change anytime soon. Is there anything Aung San Suu Kyi, I just want to ask Phil this, is there anything, do you think, that Aung San Suu Kyi can do? Does she have any control over the military at all? It doesn't seem to be the case.
There's a couple points here, I think. In terms of what can be done by the international community, there has to be pressure put on Min Aung Hlaing and the Burma Army. They're the people who can stop this immediately. And what we're talking about here, to start with, is as I mentioned, a global arms embargo, no one being able to sell arms to Burma, but also going after any sort of program that has been introduced to work with the Burma Army. And there are a number of militaries around the world who have moved towards that, and they need to suspend those programs. More importantly, I think we need to be looking at possible reintroduction of economic sanctions.
You know, look at the US involvement there from a military point of view, the British involvement from a military point of view, the fact that China supports what is going on.
Well, I mean, if there is a global arms embargo that is proclaimed by the UN Security Council, China's going to have to abide by that, along with Belarus and Russia and Israel and all these other countries that sell arms to the Burma Army. But, you know, you asked the question about Aung San Suu Kyi. Aung San Suu Kyi, of course, under the 2008 Constitution, doesn't have authority over security matters. That's given completely to the Burma Army. But she does have a moral obligation to stand up. She has a stature internationally that, while damaged, is still fairly strong. She has strong popularity within the nation of Burma. Many people still support her. she needs to step up and differentiate herself from what the Burma army is doing. She has to say, look, you know, these things that they have done have gone much too far, and we are going to investigate, and we're going to allow the UN to investigate. As foreign minister, she is the person who makes the decisions about whether the fact-finding mission that was mandated by the UN Human Rights Council has the right to enter the country or not. You know, she should say, yes, we're going to let them in, and we're going to urge them to go wherever they need to go to fulfill their mandate. And we respect the mandate of the Human Rights Council.
Okay, Abdul, you were trying to get in.
And if the army has a problem with that, well, then the army has to step up and resist it. But, you know, then they're the villain, not her.
Why would Aung San Suu Kyi step in and, you know, side with the victims, whereas, in fact, she is very much in sync with the military on this, and she controls, you know, except like a two or three important
I'm not saying, I don't know if she's going to do it or not. I mean, she may not do it. But what the question was, what should she do? And this is what she should do.
But by not condemning, let me bring in Abdul here. By not condemning, Abdul, is she providing cover for the military?
It seems like that. We believe Aung San Suu Kyi have some limited power because of the 2008 constitution and the military, 25% of military in all the parliaments. So she has less control, and the three key ministries also in the hand of the military as well. But fact is, Aung San Suu Kyi is a de facto leader of this country. So she is the most responsible. She has to speak out loudly, whatever going against the human beings. This is most important. She come with the justice, and she come with the right word to use, and at least she need to use to stop whatever going on is not according to international law, is a violation of the international law. So she has to be realized.
Okay, and Maung, I'm just wondering, I mean, I know that all the blame falls on Aung San Suu Kyi, but shouldn't it rather be the Commander-in-Chief, Min Aung Hlaing, who Phil spoke about a little bit earlier on, who controls the army, who Europe and other parts of the world lay out the red carpet for him? Shouldn't he be the one who is focused from a sanctions point of view, that he should be removed from his post? Until that happens, nothing's going to change in the army, which is anachronistic as well.
No, you know, I know these guys personally, you know, like the guys, you know, top commanders in Min Aung Hlaing's office, like his senior deputies. They are my old friends. And it doesn't matter you remove Min Aung Hlaing, but, you know, that is why I say this is genocidal, because the army has institutionalized the view that the Rohingya need to be removed on cultural and national security ground from that. By any means possible, there should be no Rohingya left standing by their name. That is why, you know, whoever general is in charge, doesn't matter. The army is on an autopilot in terms of the Rohingya, you know, eradication. That is why it's so crucial. We understand that this is an institutionalized killing, and the world needs to respond appropriately accordingly. And I think this case indicates a spectacular failure, once again, of both the Security Council and the international community. We have failed over and over again in these cases, mass atrocities, whatever their legal names, ethnic cleansing, crimes against humanity, genocide. The fact is, UN is failing spectacularly. World leaders are failing spectacularly. Regional
blocks, it seems that the world is standing by while it's happening. And Phil, I'm just going to bring you in here, excuse me, jumping in. I'm just wondering where this leaves Bangladesh. They are in a situation where they are taking in all the Rohingya, the most unwanted people on the planet, I think it's fair to say. People are talking about a mini Palestine. They don't want them there. They can't afford to have them there.
Well, Bangladesh actually has stood up in a very important way. It was gratifying to see Sheikh Hasina go down to the camps and speak with the people and speak publicly about the fact that these people are citizens of Burma. These people are persons who have to go back to that country, you know, and that they have been treated inhumanely by the government of Burma. Bangladesh needs all the support it can get right now, and I think that there has to be a priority from donor nations around the world to be as generous as possible with Bangladesh and with the UN agencies and international NGOs that are working there to be able to get the sort of food, medicines, basic shelter, and other essential elements of disaster relief to those people, because we're in the middle of the monsoon season. We're looking at the possible outbreaks of very serious waterborne disease. They've got no sanitation. A lot of people haven't eaten, for days. I mean, this is the disaster of the first order, and it needs to be dealt with that way.
Maung, you were shaking your head
But over
there.
a longer period of time, I don't know what Bangladesh is going to do. Bangladesh is going to face a difficult situation because
I think Phil hit the nail on its head. Bangladesh has stood up after having put up with the Burmese denial of the persecution in Burma, and that the profound impact that Bangladeshi society has to bear as a neighbor. This is an international issue. This is not a domestic issue. And I think one of the best way to back Bangladesh is not only increasing the funding and providing moral and diplomatic support, but to recognize and back. When Bangladeshi foreign minister 2 days ago, this is genocide, and Turkish minister has said it, scholars after scholars have said it, because it's so crucial that the crime be named by its legal name, so that we could have a serious, push to pressure Russia and China and others to come on board, or if not, we find solution outside of UN Security Council. Security Council has not prevented or protected the innocent civilians in any genocidal situations since it was created in 1945 in San Francisco.
Okay, Abdul, I'm going to bring you in now. Aung San Suu Kyi is not going to be turning up at the United Nations General Assembly gathering on Wednesday, and yet we are expecting a State of the Nation speech from her on Tuesday. Any idea what she's going to say? I mean, she must have something in her mind. She's going to have to address this situation. What do you think it is that she will be able to say?
This is really difficult. I don't know. I think that she should, if she is a smart politician, she says she's not a human rights activist, she says she's a politician, she should be figuring out a way to differentiate herself from what has happened, what has been done on the ground by the Burma army. She should be trying to recognize the concerns of the international community and saying that, there needs to be actions taken. She needs to rededicate herself to the implementation of the Rakhine Advisory Committee report, which was the commission chaired by former UN Secretary-General Kofi Annan. There's a number of things she could say, but she's going to have to condemn in some way, shape, or form the actions of the Burma army on the ground, because quite clearly they are ethnic cleansing.
Well, okay.
And they, are
Phil,
likely to be labeled as crimes against humanity as well.
Before we draw to the end of the program, Abdul, I mean, the problem is, if you don't have someone like Aung San Suu Kyi, who do you have? Do you think that's her strongest card at the moment?
No, what the problem with us is that we don't have only any choice without Aung San Suu Kyi, but Aung San Suu Kyi already facing the problem, many kind of challenges at herself, 2008 constitution and some other element also. So, but I think international community must come up with the more support to Aung San Suu Kyi, make her more strong. I think 2008 constitution is a need to be. I think it's very important to change the 2008 constitution where is possible. Is very much important. I think without 2008 constitution, if not change, I think it's very difficult to her.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Thanks very much to all my guests, Phil Robertson, Maung Zarni and Abdul Rasheed. And we look forward to hearing what Aung San Suu Kyi has to say. Thank you as well for watching. You can see the program again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. For further discussion, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on Twitter. Our handle is @AJ Inside Story. For me, Jane Dutton, and the whole team here, bye for now.